All right, diving deep today, we're tackling fasting for weight loss. And let me tell you, we've got a mountain of research and articles here.
It's a hot topic for sure.
Totally. Everyone's buzzing about it, but does fasting really live up to the hype? Is it a weight loss miracle or just another fad diet?
Well, let's break it down.
Love it. So first things first, what exactly is fasting?
You know, it's actually pretty interesting. Fasting has been practiced for centuries, mostly for religious or spiritual purposes.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But these days, science is uncovering some really fascinating stuff about its health benefits, especially when it comes to weight management. There's a lot of new research.
Okay, so not some crazy new diet trend then.
Right. Fasting is simply choosing to go without food, sometimes drinks too, for a specific amount of time.
Okay, so like what? No midnight snacks?
Well, it's a bit more structured than that. There are actually a bunch of different ways to do it.
Oh, okay. So like, what are some of the most popular methods?
One you've probably heard of is intermittent fasting, or I. Basically, you cycle between periods of eating and fasting.
Right, IF. That's the one everyone's talking about.
Yeah. A common example is the 16.8 method. You fast for 16 hours and have an 8-hour window for eating.
So like skipping breakfast and having your first meal at noon.
You got it. And the cool thing about IF is you can adjust the eating window to fit your schedule. Another one is alternate day fasting, or ADF. With this one, you switch between eating normally one day and then significantly cutting calories the next.
Okay, that sounds a little more intense.
That can be a challenge, yeah. And then you have extended fasting, which is going without food for 24 hours or even longer. Definitely not for beginners, and should only be done under medical supervision.
Got it. So not messing with that one without a doctor's. Okay. What about just like limiting when you eat?
Oh yeah, that's called time-restricted eating, and it's a good starting point for a lot of people. Basically, you choose a specific window each day for your meals and avoid food outside those hours.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, so we've got all these different options, but let's get down to business here. Why is fasting considered effective for weight loss?
Well, the most obvious reason is calorie restriction. If you're shortening your eating window, you naturally consume fewer calories overall, but it actually goes deeper than that.
Oh, okay. So tell me more.
Fasting helps make your metabolism more efficient. It does this by lowering insulin levels.
Okay, and how does that help with weight loss?
Lower insulin levels encourage your body to burn stored fat for energy instead of relying on glucose from carbs.
Ah, so you're like training your body to be a fat-burning machine.
You got it. And some studies even suggest fasting might help regulate those pesky hunger hormones. Keeps you feeling fuller for longer, reduces those cravings.
Okay, so that's the eating less part. But what about actual fat loss? How does that work with fasting?
Fasting specifically targets body fat as fuel. When you're in a fasted state, your body has to tap into those fat stores for energy since it's not getting it from food.
Interesting. So it's like switching from burning wood to burning coal in a furnace.
Great analogy.
I bet a lot of people are worried about losing muscle mass, though. If you're not eating as much, does that mean you're sacrificing muscle?
That's a really common concern. But the good news is, with the right approach, you can absolutely hold on to muscle while losing fat through fasting.
Phew, that's a relief. How do you make sure that happens?
Well, a few key things. First, make sure you're getting enough protein during those eating windows. Protein provides the building blocks for muscle repair and growth.
So protein shakes galore.
Not necessarily. Focus on protein-rich foods like eggs, fish, lean meats, dairy. Getting high-quality protein from whole food sources is key. And strength training is super important too. Lifting weights signals to your body to hold on to that precious muscle mass.
So eat your protein and hit the gym. Got it.
Exactly. Oh, and one more thing, leucine. It's an essential amino acid, crucial for muscle protein synthesis. Luckily, it's found in a lot of common protein sources.
Hold on, back up leucine.
It's a building block of protein. Really important for telling your muscles to grow and repair. You can find it in foods like eggs, fish, dairy. Think of it as a turbo boost for your muscle building efforts while you're fasting.
Ah, got it. Okay, so protein, strength training, and leucine, the trifecta for maintaining muscle while fasting. Now, I know men and women are built differently. Does fasting affect them differently too?
That's a great point. Because of those hormonal differences, men often experience a bigger metabolic boost from fasting. They might even see an increase in testosterone levels.
Oh, interesting. So guys have a bit of an edge here.
Potentially, yeah. Plus, the structured nature of fasting seems to make it easier for some men to stick to a calorie deficit, which of course is key for weight loss.
Makes sense. Okay, remember that golden retriever connection I mentioned earlier? I think this is a good place to bring it in.
Oh yeah, I'm all ears.
Well, golden retrievers are known for being super versatile, right? Guide dogs, search and rescue, family pets, they do it all. And just like that, fasting can be adapted to fit all sorts of lifestyles.
I see where you're going with this.
Right. So many different fasting methods out there. You're bound to find one that suits you, whether you're a busy professional, a stay-at-home parent, a gym enthusiast, whatever.
It's true. There really is a lot of flexibility. And it's not just anecdotal evidence. There's actually a lot of scientific research backing up the benefits of fasting.
Let's talk about that research. What have studies shown us?
Numerous studies have shown that, compared to traditional calorie restriction, intermittent fasting is actually better at preserving muscle mass.
That's huge.
Right. And lots of people find fasting easier to stick to in the long run, compared to those strict, often complicated diets. This is crucial for sustainable weight loss.
Sustainability is definitely key. Who wants to be on a diet forever?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And beyond just weight loss, research shows that fasting can improve blood sugar control, cholesterol levels, overall metabolic health. This ties back to your overall well-being, not just the number on the scale.
So it's about way more than just fitting into your skinny jeans.
It absolutely is. Fasting can have a ripple effect of positive changes on your overall health.
Okay, let's take a closer look at one specific type, alternate day fasting. What are the main things to understand about this one?
All right, so ADF, as we mentioned, involves alternating between days of normal eating and days with very low calorie intake, usually around 500 calories. Studies have shown that it can lead to significant weight and fat loss, improve how well your body uses insulin, and even reduce inflammation.
Wow, those are some impressive results, but it also sounds really tough.
It can be, yeah. For some folks, it's a real challenge to maintain, especially on those very low-calorie days. But for those who find it manageable, the results can be pretty remarkable.
All right, let's zoom in on body fat for a second. We've talked about how fasting helps with weight loss in general, but how does it specifically target that stubborn body fat?
Well, remember how we talked about lowering insulin levels?
Yeah.
That's key here. When insulin levels are low, your body becomes much more efficient at accessing and burning stored fat for energy.
So it's like unlocking your fat reserves.
That's a great way to put it. Fasting also increases lipolysis, which is the process of breaking down fat cells for energy. So your body shifts from storing fat to actively breaking it down.
So you're not just storing fat, you're actually using it for fuel.
Exactly. And to add to that, fasting boosts certain hormones like norepinephrine, which further ramps up fat burning.
So it's like a triple threat against fat. Now, what about all these fasting diets we hear about? What does that term actually mean?
Fasting diets simply means eating patterns that include planned periods of fasting. There are quite a few popular types out there. We've touched on some of them already.
Right. Let's just do a quick recap for our listeners, just so everything's crystal clear.
Sure. We talked about the 16.8 method, 16 hours fasting, 8-hour eating window. Then there's the 5.2 diet, where you eat normally for 5 days and restrict your calories to 500, 600 for 2 non-consecutive days.
Right, that one seems a bit more, doable than alternate day fasting, at least for me.
It can be more manageable for some people, yeah. And then there's OMAD, which stands for 1 meal a day. So, as the name suggests, you eat just one large meal within a 1-hour window each day.
Wow. Okay, that takes some serious dedication.
It does.
With all these options, how do you figure out which fasting method is the right fit? Like, is there a best way to fast?
That's where things like your age, your lifestyle, and your overall health goals come in. Like intermittent fasting, for example, can be adapted for different age groups with a little tweaking.
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. What about teenagers? Is fasting safe for them?
It can be, but it's super important to make sure teenagers are still getting all the nutrients they need, especially since they're growing and developing. A 14.10 fasting window with a 10-hour eating period is often a good recommendation for them.
Okay, that makes sense. What about adults? Like, is there a go-to method for them?
The 16.8 or 18.7 methods are popular choices, but again, it really depends on individual goals and lifestyles. Some people find they have more energy and focus with a longer fasting window, while others prefer a shorter one.
Gotcha. So some flexibility there. Now, what about women over 50? Are there any specific things they should consider?
Definitely. Hormonal changes during menopause can affect how the body responds to fasting. So it's generally recommended to start slowly, maybe with a 12.12 or a 14.2 fasting window, just finding what feels right.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And what about seniors? Are there any special considerations for that age group?
Yeah, for seniors, it's super important to make sure they're maintaining muscle mass. So combining fasting with resistance exercises and enough protein intake is really important. A 10.1 through or 12.1 through fasting window might be a good place to start. And of course, always a good idea to talk to their doctor, especially if they have any chronic conditions they're managing.
That's good advice. This has been super helpful, but I think it's worth kind of zooming in on women over 50 and seniors for a moment because they often have unique needs and concerns.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are some of the key things to keep in mind for these groups specifically?
Well, for women over 50, fasting can be particularly helpful for regulating hormones and improving metabolic flexibility, which can be really beneficial during menopause.
Oh, interesting. So that's good news for women going through that stage of life.
Yeah, it can be. And for seniors, as we were saying, it's really all about prioritizing muscle maintenance, strength training, making sure they're getting enough protein, and starting slowly with those shorter fasting periods. And again, always talking to their doctor if they have any underlying health conditions.
This is all fantastic information, but I think it would be helpful to just talk about some practical tips for starting fasting safely, just so people can get a sense of how to actually do this.
Definitely.
What do people absolutely need to know before they jump in?
Choosing the right method for you is the first and most important step. Don't feel like you have to jump into a long fast right away. Starting with a less restrictive approach, like time-restricted eating, can be a great way to ease into it.
Baby steps, right?
Exactly. And remember to stay hydrated throughout the day, even during your fasting periods. That's super important.
Can't emphasize hydration enough.
Absolutely. During your eating windows, focus on nutrient-rich foods, whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats, fruits, veggies.
Okay, so quality over quantity.
You got it. And lastly, listen to your body. If you're feeling overly fatigued or lightheaded, adjust your fasting periods as needed. Don't push yourself too hard.
This is all fantastic advice. So to sum it up, it seems like fasting can be a really effective tool for weight loss and just improving overall health as long as it's done correctly.
I would agree with that, yeah. It's important to remember that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Tailoring your approach is key. That's where the real success and sustainability come in.
We've definitely covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But this is just the start of our deep dive into fasting.
Yeah, just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Welcome back. I'm curious, did you have a chance to think about that question that we left you with? It's a big one, but that's kind of why we're here, right? To really unpack fashion and help you navigate all its potential.
Oh, for sure. It definitely got me thinking. We covered a lot of ground in the last part, but I'm ready to go even deeper. Let's talk more about the science behind fasting and all those potential benefits beyond just weight loss. We touched on them a bit, but I'm eager to, really dive in.
I'm with you. Let's start with one area where fasting really shines: blood sugar control. Studies have shown that fasting can significantly improve your body's sensitivity to insulin.
Okay, so that means what exactly?
It means your body can use insulin more effectively to keep those blood sugar levels in check.
Ah, got it. So good news for people with type 2 diabetes or those at risk of developing it?
Absolutely. And even for people without diabetes, improving insulin sensitivity can have a ripple effect on overall health. It's pretty significant.
How so? What's the connection there?
Well, when your cells are more sensitive to insulin, they can take up glucose from your bloodstream more efficiently. And this helps prevent those crazy spikes and crashes in blood sugar that can leave you feeling totally drained and sluggish.
Yeah, I definitely know that feeling.
Right. It can make a big difference in your energy levels throughout the day.
For sure. We also talked about how fasting can have a positive impact on cholesterol levels. Can you break that down a bit more?
Yeah, definitely. Research has shown that fasting can lower LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol.
Right, the one we want to keep low.
Exactly. High LDL cholesterol contributes to that plaque buildup in your arteries, which increases the risk of heart disease.
So fasting is heart healthy too? It's starting to sound like a real superhero.
It's a powerful tool, that's for sure. But it's important to remember it's not a magic bullet for everything. There are still risks and misconceptions that we need to address.
Right. Always good to keep things realistic. Okay, let's talk about those risks and misconceptions. What are some of the things you hear most often?
One concern I often hear is that fasting will lead to nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah, I can see why people would worry about that. If you're not eating as often, are you missing out on essential vitamins and minerals?
It's a valid concern, and it's why it's so important to, approach fasting thoughtfully. If you're following a well-planned approach and prioritizing nutrient-rich foods during your eating windows, you can absolutely meet all your nutritional needs.
So it all comes back to making smart food choices.
Exactly. And that's where working with a registered dietitian or a certified nutritionist can be incredibly valuable. They can help personalize a meal plan that ensures you're getting everything your body needs while you're fasting.
That's great advice. Now, what about people who already have health conditions? Is fasting safe for everyone?
That's a really important point. Fasting isn't appropriate for everyone, and it's crucial to consult with your doctor before making any major dietary changes, especially if you have a pre-existing health condition, like diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, just to be on the safe side.
Talk to your doctor first. Always good advice. What are some other misconceptions you encounter?
One big one is that fasting is just another word for, starving yourself.
Yeah, I can see how people might get those two confused.
The key difference is intent. Fasting is a deliberate and controlled practice with, specific health goals in mind. Starvation is involuntary and often stems from a lack of access to food. Totally different situations.
So it's about being mindful and intentional with your approach.
Exactly. Another misconception is that fasting will leave you feeling weak and tired all the time.
Oh, yeah. That's one I've heard a lot. People worry they won't have the energy to, get through their day if they're fasting.
It's an understandable concern, but you might be surprised to learn that many people actually report feeling more energized and focused during their fasting periods.
Really? How is that possible?
Remember how we talked about how fasting helps stabilize blood sugar levels?
Yeah.
That plays a huge role in your energy levels. When your blood sugar is stable, you avoid those energy crashes that can happen with a typical high-carb diet.
It's about trading those short bursts of energy for a more consistent level throughout the day.
Exactly. And your body also becomes more efficient at burning fat for fuel during a fast, which can provide a steady source of energy as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk about something that I think a lot of people struggle with: hunger. Fasting, by its very nature, means going without food for a period of time. What are some of your top tips for handling those hunger pangs?
Hunger. That's definitely one of the biggest hurdles people face when they first start fasting. But there are some strategies that can make a big difference. One is to gradually increase your fasting window. Don't go from eating all day long to a 16-hour fast overnight. Start by pushing back breakfast by an hour or two, and then gradually increase your fasting period as you get used to it.
So ease into it and listen to your body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And stay hydrated. Drinking plenty of water throughout the day, especially during your fasting periods, can help to curb those hunger feelings.
We're back to hydration again. It's so important.
It really can't be overstated. And don't forget about electrolytes.
Electrolytes, like the stuff in sports drinks.
Exactly. They're minerals like sodium, potassium, and magnesium that are crucial for regulating fluid balance in your body. You can lose electrolytes through urine when you're fasting, so it's important to replenish them.
Okay. And how do you do that?
You can add a pinch of salt to your water, snack on electrolyte-rich foods like avocados or bananas, or even consider an electrolyte supplement, especially if you're exercising while fasting.
Got it. So gradual fasting, hydration, electrolytes, those are the key strategies for managing hunger.
You got it. And here's another tip. Don't be afraid to experiment a little. Try different fasting methods to find what works best for you. What works for one person might not work for another. It's all about listening to your body and finding what feels sustainable.
I love that advice. It's all about personalization.
That's right. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to fasting. And remember, it's not an all-or-nothing proposition. You don't have to be perfect every single day to experience the benefits.
That's reassuring. It's more about finding a pattern that you can stick with and that fits your life.
Exactly. Consistency is key, but flexibility is important too.
We've covered so much already. It feels like we've just scratched the surface of this fascinating topic.
I know, right? There's still so much to explore.
Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into fasting. Phew, we've covered a lot of ground already, right? The science, the benefits, the risks. We've even busted some myths along the way.
We have.
But now I think it's time to get practical. Let's talk about how to actually make fasting work for you.
Right, time to bridge the gap between theory and action. So let's explore how you can really integrate fasting into your daily life.
That's what I'm talking about. So how do you actually do that? How do you make fasting a part of your routine? It's one thing to understand the idea, but actually putting it into practice. Well, that's a whole other challenge, right?
Yeah, it can be. One of the best strategies is to start small and gradually increase your fasting window. Don't go from eating all day long to a 16-hour fast overnight. You know, try pushing back breakfast by an hour or two and see how that feels.
Baby steps.
Exactly. Pay attention to your body and gradually adjust that fasting window as you get more comfortable. And remember, consistency is key here. It's more beneficial to fast for shorter periods consistently than to try a long fast and then, give up completely.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's about building a sustainable habit, not punishing yourself.
Right, exactly. And to make it even more manageable, you can try incorporating, time-restricted eating into your routine. Choose a specific window each day for eating and stick to it as much as possible. It helps create a rhythm for your body and can make fasting feel less restrictive.
So, eating only between noon and 8 p.m. every day, just as an example.
Exactly. And during that eating window, remember to fuel your body with those nutrient-dense foods. Whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats, fruits, vegetables, all the good stuff.
Quality over quantity. We've heard that before, but it's super important here.
It is. And don't forget hydration. Always crucial, but even more so when you're fasting. So make sure you're drinking plenty of water throughout the day, especially during your fasting periods.
Hydration is key. I think we've drilled that one home.
Can't emphasize it enough. Another practical tip, plan your meals in advance. This can help you avoid, impulsive food choices when you're feeling hungry and make it easier to stick to your fasting schedule.
Oh, meal prepping. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about motivation for a second. Fasting, like any lifestyle change, it takes commitment, discipline. So how do you stay motivated on this journey? What are some tips?
Setting realistic goals is huge. Don't fixate on drastic weight loss. Instead, focus on achievable changes that make you feel good. Increase energy levels, improve blood sugar control, just an overall sense of well-being.
It's about more than just the number on the scale.
Absolutely. Fasting can really impact your health in so many ways. And don't forget to celebrate those wins along the way. No matter how small they seem, every step forward is a victory.
I love that. Positive reinforcement. So important. Okay, what about the social aspect of fasting? We touched on this earlier, but I want to dig a little deeper. How do you navigate social situations when you're fasting? It can be tricky.
It can be. Honesty and open communication are key. Let your friends and family know about your fasting goals and why they're important to you. You never know, you might even inspire them to give it a try.
Yeah, having a fasting buddy always makes things easier.
It does.
But what about those times when you're invited to events, like dinner parties or holiday gatherings where, food is a big part of it? How do you handle that?
It's all about finding a balance that works for you. You can still participate in those events, even if you're not eating. Focus on connecting with people, enjoying the conversations. If you feel comfortable, you could even bring your own, fasting-friendly drinks or snacks.
Sparkling water with lime is always a good one. And herbal teas can be surprisingly satisfying, too.
Totally. It's about finding ways to still enjoy those social gatherings without feeling restricted or left out.
Now, let's shift gears and talk about something I find really fascinating, the connection between fasting and longevity. There's been a lot of buzz about this lately. What can you tell us about what scientists are discovering?
This is definitely a hot topic in the research world right now. There's growing evidence that fasting could actually play a role in slowing down the aging process and increasing lifespan.
Wow, okay, how does that work?
Well, fasting seems to trigger certain cellular processes that promote repair and regeneration. It can also reduce oxidative stress and inflammation, which are both major contributors to aging.
So it's almost like hitting a reset button on your cells.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. And some research suggests that fasting might even enhance cognitive function and protect against neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's.
That's incredible. So fasting could be a key to not only living a longer life, but a healthier one as well.
That's certainly the hope. It's important to remember that this is still a relatively new area of research. We need more studies to fully understand those long-term impacts of fasting on longevity. But the early findings are definitely exciting.
It's amazing to think about the possibilities. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear some, inspiring stories about people who have actually experienced the transformative power of fasting firsthand. What are some of your favorite success stories?
I've been fortunate enough to see firsthand how fasting can change lives. I've worked with clients who have reversed type 2 diabetes, lost a significant amount of weight, and just regained their energy and vitality through fasting.
It's so inspiring to hear those stories.
It really is. It highlights that fasting, when done thoughtfully and safely, can be such a powerful tool for improving your health and well-being.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive. We've explored the science, the benefits, the risks, the myths. We even talked about longevity. I really hope our listeners feel empowered to explore fasting and see if it might be a good fit for them.
I hope so too. Remember, this is just the beginning of the journey. There are so many resources out there to support you along the way.
And if you're looking for personalized guidance, I definitely recommend reaching out to a registered dietitian or a certified nutritionist who specializes in fasting. They can help create a safe and effective fasting plan that's tailored just for you, your needs, and your goals.
Absolutely. It's a great way to get started.
Well, that's it for today's deep dive, but the conversation doesn't have to end here. Keep exploring the world of fasting. You might just discover it holds the key to transforming your health and well-being in ways you never thought possible.
That's right. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and most importantly, listen to your body.
Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, happy fasting.